Welcome to another forecast discussion here on the channel. Tonight we'll be discussing the winter storm expected to affect much of the south central plains, including portions of Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, and New Mexico. Focusing in on Oklahoma here, we can see a graphic release from the National Weather Service in Norman that goes into detail regarding the current watch and warning status. This was from 2:03 p.m., so this may not be quite as accurate as we are now looking at 10 p.m. Central Time. But we can see this wide swath of winter storm warnings across the Texas Panhandle, central Oklahoma, and extending into portions of eastern and northeastern Oklahoma. Impacts in the winter storm warning are going to include wet snowfall anywhere from 4 to 6 inches with locally higher amounts possible. Outside of the winter storm warning, we're going to see more likely of 1 to 4 inches, although everywhere in Oklahoma should note that higher and lower accumulations will be possible. Taking a look over at the models here, and the GEFS has a forecasted snowfall of about 9 to 10 inches in the Oklahoma City metro. Although it should be noted that even though we're seeing these higher regions of snowfall, southwestern Oklahoma, southeastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, the GEFS isn't really going to show some of those finer details. So take this graphic with a grain of salt, and we likely won't be seeing anywhere from 10 to 12 plus inches as is shown here by this graphic. But to get an overall sense of the forecast, we can see a wide swath of high snow accumulations are expected across central Oklahoma, northeastern Oklahoma, extending into northwestern Arkansas and Missouri. Looking over at the Euro Ensemble here, we see some lower accumulations. This is probably going to be more realistic, although we do see some similarities here with higher accumulations across southwestern Oklahoma, northwest Texas, and southeastern southern Oklahoma, and even into Arkansas and Missouri here. But again, this is not going to show some of the finer details. To look at that, we're going to look at the RAP model and see how it is unfolding this weather event throughout the day tomorrow. We can see by 8 a.m. that rain and snow has already entered portions of southwestern Oklahoma and northwestern Texas with a heavy band in western Texas into southwestern Oklahoma. As we move forward in time, you'll notice that as this band gets closer to central Oklahoma, that rain snow line tends to stay off to the west a little bit. And this is going to be due to the fact that these surface temperatures aren't going to be below freezing. If we take a modeled sounding here, we can see that surface temperatures are expected to be 40 degrees or less. I think 40 degrees is probably going to be on the warmer side of things. But again, the overall profile is below freezing until we get to that surface level. So it's going to take heavy rain or snow to cool that profile down to get a consistent changeover to all snow. And this late changeover forecasted here by the RAP can be noted in its snowfall totals as we see again that higher band here in western Texas is sending up to southwestern Oklahoma, but really struggling to push its way further east as we get into that early afternoon hour. Here at 3 p.m., we can see again very low accumulations in central Oklahoma, but there is a heavier band expected to move in late afternoon, early evening across central Oklahoma. That'll boost these totals a little bit. And as that storm system moves off to the east, we will see some of these higher totals. Again, southeastern Oklahoma, Missouri, and northwestern Arkansas. Going over to the NAM here, again, we can see a similar picture with accumulations, really similar to the RIP model with those high accumulations across southwestern Oklahoma, even extending into western and north central Oklahoma. But again, we can see this sharp cutoff, which wasn't really illustrated by the National Weather Service Northern Forecast graphic. And that's because with all of these models, they're going to go back and forth, and it's really hard to fine tune those sharp gradients until we get hours out from an event. And that's why it's important to note that whenever you see those graphics from the National Weather Service or local news agencies, you shouldn't take them as literal interpretations of what is exactly going to happen. It's to always be taken with a grain of salt, knowing that, especially with winter events, sharp gradients are likely to happen with localized banding. Moving over to the HER model, we can see that this heavy band of rain, snow is expected to move in early tomorrow morning in southwestern Oklahoma. And by 7 a.m., we can already see pretty heavy snow rates falling in northwest Texas, southwest Oklahoma, and some of that rain starting to try and make its way into west central Oklahoma. And as we get to the noon hour, we can see again the rain snow line is pushing its way through the metro, taking a real quick sounding over the Norman area. We can see that these temperatures are again above freezing at the surface, but it's a very, very shallow layer of above freezing temperatures. Really, you're only talking about maybe a quarter, a third of a kilometer above the ground where those temperatures are above freezing. Everything above that layer is going to be falling as snow. So, again, this will be a very wet snow. In order to get temperatures at or below freezing, we will have to have very, very heavy snowfall, which is possible, but is expected for temperatures to stay near or above freezing until late in the day on Tuesday, if not early Wednesday morning. Now, looking at the total snowfall from the HRRR, we can see that some of these more higher resolution models are beginning to show themselves with, again, this higher region of snowfall across southwestern Oklahoma. And again, the struggles with the changeover from rain to snow can be seen here in central Oklahoma as well, with only lower accumulations and very sharp gradients here in south central Oklahoma between the higher and lower accumulation. Now, taking a look at some more ensemble members, we're going to look over at the Shref here. This is the average temperature from the last few runs. And we can see that, again, these temperatures are expected to be at 35 or above, definitely above freezing. Looking at the average snow totals for Norman, we can see this bullseye in pretty strong agreement from the last four runs of around 8 to 9 inches. But it should be noted that with wet snowfall events, there will be compacting snow. So even if you get a liquid equivalent of 8 to 9 inches, you may not see that. It may be closer to 5 or 6 tops with the compacting of snow as time goes on. One thing to note moving forward is that the higher resolution models, in including the HRRR and the FREF Ensemble, are showing a few interesting things regarding temperature errors this evening. This is from 3Z, so it's going to be 9 o'clock Central Time. And we can see a couple of areas of interest that temperatures are actually warmer than the models expected in this region to the southwest, basically quarter of Oklahoma. And off to the northeast, we're actually seeing temperatures a little bit colder than what the models were forecasting. This isn't a huge issue, although if temperatures stay warmer down in southwestern Oklahoma, we will see continued issues with the rain to snow transition, as this is expected to move off to the east during the day, and we're not going to see a huge decrease in temperatures as that happens. But an interesting thing to note is we do have some much colder temperatures than what was expected. This is likely due to a snowpack in central and western Kansas. And as this system moves off to the east, we will get a boundary, which will be a dry line extending in South Texas. But behind that boundary, we'll get winds out of the west. So if some of these colder temperatures can be pulled down, there is a potential for colder temperatures to kind of reach the surface and help expedite that rain to snow transition. Looking at current conditions across the state of Oklahoma, we can see temperatures ranging anywhere from below freezing in north central and eastern Oklahoma, all the way to the mid 40s, low 40s across basically the southwestern third of the state. This isn't too far off from what models were expecting, but especially the morning hours, these temperatures are going to play a huge role in this forecast snow accumulations. And as we take a look at the station mediagrams, this one in particular for Norman, we can see that over the last 6 hours even, there haven't been many fluctuations in the temperature. And with that wind coming out of the southeast currently, we're not really expecting to see any major drastic temperature changes until that boundary moves through tomorrow morning. Taking a look at one last model here, we're going to look at the high resolution ensemble forecast from the Storm Prediction Center. We can see here a region of 8 to 10 inches expected in portions of south central Oklahoma and eastern Oklahoma, with a large region of 6 to 8 surrounding that. But again, this is going to be a wet snowfall, and these totals are probably on the higher end of what should be expected. With mesoscale bands taking place tomorrow, we probably won't see such a widespread area of 6 to 8, or even especially 8 to 10. But some areas may receive 6 plus inches in locally higher amounts. But again, most areas will receive on the average from 2 to 5 inches, with even locally lower amounts possible. And once again, this is the official forecast from the National Weather Service in Norman. This is expected to change, so tune back in tomorrow morning to your local media and the National Weather Service for the latest official forecast. A couple of impacts that we can go over that will be expected from this storm are going to be the possibility for power outages. These aren't expected to be widespread, but because it is such a heavy, wet snow, there's the potential for some load bearing to be experienced by the power lines and power infrastructure, and so a few local power outages will be possible. Road conditions aren't expected to deteriorate right away in central Oklahoma. They may deteriorate a little bit quicker in southwestern Oklahoma, where we are going to see some of those more intense snowfall bands. But overall, roads shouldn't be too bad as temperatures have been well above freezing every day here for the past few days, with temperatures only dipping below freezing for brief periods during the night. So roads may become treacherous later in the day on Tuesday, and especially Tuesday night into Wednesday. And as always with any winter event, if you do have to get out, it's always advised that you use a lot of caution, give yourself extra time and extra distance in between you and the car. Thanks for watching, and stay safe tomorrow as the snow comes in.